The headlines, the issues impacting you and your family. This week in Cincinnati on WCPO 9.
Welcome to This Week in Cincinnati. I'm Tanya O'Rourke. Former Speaker of the House and Congressman from Westchester, John Boehner, has a new book. And he makes it perfectly clear how he feels about certain personalities in Washington right now. I recently spoke with him about his book and his thoughts about the state of our union. Boehner left the House in 2015. So my first question for him was, after all this time, why put out a book now?
Well, I really wasn't going to write a book. And then I retired and thought, I've had a pretty interesting life, very interesting career. There's a pretty good story here. Maybe I'll write it. And so then by the time I got around to getting it finished, it turned out, came out now. No design, no plan, just happened to turn out now.
You're very, very frank in your book. I mean, pretty plain spoken about how you feel about virtually everyone. Did you mean to be that upfront?
I spent my whole life being upfront, frank, candid. I can be respectful, but I've always found that it's easier to say it the way it is, be upfront with people and move on. And when I wrote the book, I was committed to myself that this book was going to be me. It was going to sound like me. It was going to be candid and frank, and it is.
It sure is. You talk about everyone from presidents that you worked with to people in your own party, people on the other side of the fence. You, though, save your greatest, harshest words for Senator Ted Cruz. I can't say what you said about him, which is my favorite quote, perhaps, of the book, but what about him and people like him is tearing this country apart, or are they?
Well, what I say in the book is there's nothing worse than a reckless jackass who thinks he's smarter than everybody else. Here's one of these guys, the epitome of, I think, what's wrong in Washington these days on both sides of the aisle. People get elected, they want to draw attention to themselves, they create chaos, they bring more attention to themselves, they raise money, and I think that makes them more powerful. I went to Washington thinking that my job was to work with my colleagues to get something done on behalf of our country. And but some people don't quite look at it that way. And, on any given day, I had a couple dozen of these knuckleheads in my own caucus that I had to deal with. And, it's just the way it was. I learned a long time ago. You get up in the morning, you got to play the cards that you were dealt. I'm still waiting for that hand I wake up with all aces. And happened yet.
President Reagan famously said that I did not leave the Democratic Party left me. Do you feel that way about the Republican Party?
No, I'm a Republican. I just want Republicans to start acting more like Republicans. That's all.
How is that going to happen?
That goes back to following the principles of what it means to be a Republican: fiscal responsibility, strong national defense, free and fair trade, things that embody what it means to be a Republican. And if we get to focusing on the principles of the Republican Party, the personalities will go away, some of the factions will go away, and we'll have a chance to take the country forward with a Republican majority.
Because I've been reading some more far-right Republican or conservative articles about you, and they're frankly taking you out for writing this book.
Well, listen, the knuckleheads never much cared for me because I was, quote, the establishment. Here I am, a reformer in the 90s, broke more glass in Washington than most people, mostly trying to straighten out the institution of the Congress. And but once you become the speaker, you're the epitome of the establishment. Now, these are the same people who want chaos every day. They want to promise people things that are never going to happen, and they're great noisemakers. But at the end of the day, I thought the goal was to get things done in Washington that would help our country move ahead. That's what I try to do every day.
You didn't say that you disliked Donald Trump in any way necessarily. You just thought he should have listened maybe a little better. Or was it more than that?
Donald Trump and I have been friends for a long time. We play a lot of golf together over the years. I will have to say, though, in all the years we spent together and all the rounds of golf we played together, I never once thought I was looking at a future president of the United States. Listen, he has a different style than I do. And clearly, he was a different kind of president, probably the most different president we've had in our nation's history. But that's over. It's done with. We got a new president. It's time to move on.
You talk about the media, and I know we probably have to wrap up here in a second, but I do want to ask you the role that the media, 24-hour news cycles, cable news, those who pontificate on cable networks specifically. I won't leave us out completely, but it's primarily on a national level. How are they affecting our politics? And is that good or bad? And what should be done?
Well, between talk radio and cable TV, there's a lot of noise. Some of it true, some of it not true. And it's hard to get at what the facts are. It's hard to get to the truth these days. I don't watch any national news on TV. None, zero, none. I read every morning for about an hour. I read a pretty wide array of publications to try to figure out really what's going on, not somebody's version of what's going on. So journalism's taken a big hit here in the last few years, and now anybody who posts anything is essentially a journalist, or at least they think they are.
So what do we need to do? Is there anything that can be done? Is it changing?
People need to search a little bit harder for the truth and the facts. They're not as evident as they used to be.
As you saw, John Boehner has some strong feelings about some of the current members of Congress. So what should be done to reduce all the polarization? We'll have that for you when This Week in Cincinnati returns.
Loud voices are holding members and the leaders hostage to their own agenda. And so this is a prescription for gridlock in Washington.
Welcome back. I recently had the chance to speak with former Republican Speaker of the House and Westchester Congressman John Boehner. We covered a lot of ground, including how politics in Washington has become more and more polarized and paralyzed, and what can be done to fix it.
Well, America is divided, and as a result, the Congress is divided. As a matter of fact, it's about evenly divided. The Senate is 50-50, the House is virtually 50-50, and Joe Biden got elected, frankly, narrowly. And members at the end of the day reflect their constituents. Well, to be more honest, they reflect the loudest voices in their constituency. So on the Democrat side, it's the left of the left, the Republican side, it's the right of the right. And the American people, or I should say, these loud voices are holding members and the leaders hostage to their own agenda. And so this is a prescription for gridlock in Washington. It certainly isn't a prescription for getting a whole lot accomplished, unless the president decides, hey, I'm not going to keep caving to the left. I'm going to work with the Republicans to get some things done, which is entirely possible if he wants to reach out and do that.
Are you seeing that at all?
Haven't seen it yet. Over the last, nearly 100 days now since Joe Biden's taken office, he's caved to the left. He's a traditional Democrat. I've known him for 30 years. He's a good guy. Even though we disagree on some things, he and I have been able to work out hundreds of things, especially the 5 years I was Speaker. He's had chances over the first 100 days to reach across the aisle, but he knows if he does, the far left is just going to take his head off. And so he's chosen to kind of lean to the left, at the expense of trying to find bipartisan common ground. Now we'll see what happens here in the next 100 days, but so far I haven't seen much indication of it.
So what happens if we keep being partisan in this country? What is our future like? You say there's hope for this country, but if that keeps up.
Tanya, there's hope. We're the most resilient people God ever put on earth. Americans always figure it out. We make this mistake, that mistake. We may wait too long to fix a problem, But at the end of the day, we always seem to get it right. We've got the most open, transparent society the world's ever known, and we'll get there. People are concerned about it. They worry about it. I'm not worried at all. We're going through a rough patch. We'll figure it out.
I distinctly remember when Pope Francis came to Congress, your request. I remember watching you tear up. I remember, I think it was the very next day that you announced your resignation. As a Catholic, I watched this with great interest. I watched all of it. And I wonder, what was it about his visit? Was it something he said specifically to you? Was there something about him that made you say, it's time for me to step away? Or was it just that, hey, I reached the pinnacle. I got the Pope to come to Congress?
No, it was really none of that. I was going to leave at the end of 2014. And then my number two, Eric Cantor, lost his primary election. I decided I would stick around an extra year. So I was going to leave at the end of 2015. I was going to announce it in November of 2015. But when the Pope was there on September 24th, 2015, after he left, the Capitol was just aglow. Democrats, Republicans, House, Senate, everybody was happy. It might have been the happiest day I saw in the 25 years I was in Congress. And so later that afternoon, I was getting ready to go meet up with my family and my friends who were in town for the Pope. I said to my chief, I said, you know what? I might just do this tomorrow. I said, it's not going to get any better than it was today. And he said, why not? So I thought about it that night, thought about the next morning, and I thought, yeah, I think today's the day. We had a meeting already scheduled with all the Republican members at 9 o'clock that morning. I went in early and told my senior staff what I was going to do, and opened the house and went downstairs to the caucus. And it was the end of the fiscal year. I was telling them what we're going to do the following week and what we weren't going to do. And they were grumbling, moaning, groaning. And then I said, by the way, I've got a few other things I'd like to say. And by the time I told them that I was going to leave the speakership and leave Congress, it looked like I hit all of them upside the head with a 2x4. It was perfect. Didn't have to hear it from anywhere else, no rumors. Got to look them all in the eye and tell them they're the people who elected me, and they should be the first ones to know.
I swear, I think you're going to cry right now talking about it.
No, it was great. I'm not having
Go
one moment of remorse or regret about how I left and when I left, and nothing since. It's been great.
You don't miss it? You don't miss
No.
Washington at all?
No.
Well, I know you winter down in Marco in Florida, but is Cincinnati always going to be home to you?
But yes, we live out in Westchester. We've lived out there for, I don't know, 47 years, I guess, 48 years. And so Westchester's home, Cincinnati's home. And, we spend about half the year there, half the year down here in Florida. And it seems to work out pretty well. It just so happens a couple of years ago, one of my daughters, number one daughter, moved to Marco Island with her husband and now 5-year-old. My other daughter moved about the same time to Cincinnati, back to home from Pittsburgh with her husband and now 3-year-old. So I got 2 little grandsons. I'm just trying to be the best grandfather I can be.
How's that going?
Going real well.
So that was bad and worse. I love that.
Bad and worse. Bad and worse, boy. Nothing worse than having 2 named girls and being in Congress at the same time. It was a nightmare.
I know you've been asked this question before, probably by my former colleague, Carol Williams, but how does a barkeep's son from Reading, Ohio, end up the second most powerful man in Washington, the Speaker of the House? How does that happen?
I don't know. That surprised me. I never thought I'd ever be in politics. Growing up, I thought, I want to be a salesman. And I ended up owning a sales and marketing company in the packaging and plastics industries. And I thought I was going to do that the rest of my life. Along the way, I got involved in my neighborhood homeowners association. Next thing you know, I'm the Speaker of the House. This too could happen to you.
Speaker Boehner also told me that he feels fortunate to have grown up in this area and that the people and values of this area provided a foundation for his success in Washington. This Week in Cincinnati, we'll be right back.
Welcome back to This Week in Cincinnati. I'm Craig McKee. Throughout this pandemic, we've all had to make changes so we can still get the job done. For the nonprofit People Working Cooperatively, or PWC, it meant changing how their entire volunteer workforce can get the work done.
I think this is probably the future.
Let's go that way.
There are a few things that we've retooled
Bubbles in the middle.
to help accommodate our volunteers during the course of the pandemic that I think are going to stay, and this is one of them.
Good.
Giving people the flexibility to work over the course of the month, over a longer period of time.
Aaron Grant oversees all volunteer operations within PWC, and when the pandemic hit in early 2020, it threw the volunteer workforce into a tailspin.
We weren't sure what we could do. You know, we knew that we had to do something. We knew that the work was too important.
In the past, their Fall Prepare a Fair event, where volunteer teams like ours from WCPO rake leaves and clean up yards ahead of the winter, would take place on just one day. However, COVID meant stretching it out over an entire month.
Initially, it was so that we could make sure that people had a day and maybe a backup day 14 days away, just in case, God forbid, something happened to them or their crew.
That change helped bring out nearly 1,500 volunteers.
At the moment, we're at 30.
The current Repair a Fair going on right now, where volunteers help rebuild stairs, sidewalks, porches, or in this case, install handrails for added safety and mobility, is also following the extended rollout.
Our team members were just so excited to get to be a part of, connecting, helping people in the community.
These volunteers are from TriHealth. Rooted in healthcare, Stephanie Lambers says it's great to assist people outside of the medical environment.
So to get to do the hands-on and kind of leave the positions of patient care and those type of things for a couple hours, to be able to actually make that difference out in the community, we're so happy to do that.
While the community shut down during a portion of the pandemic, Aaron says the needs of the community continue to grow and is grateful for those who are willing to come swing a hammer.
We hope that by spreading it out over the month and giving people more flexibility, that we can connect them to an even larger number of homes that need their help.
Now, I currently serve on PWC's development board, and there is always a discussion about the need throughout the year for volunteers. You can reach out directly to PWC by phone or hop online, pwchomrepairs.org. This Week in Cincinnati, we'll be right back. Welcome back to This Week in Cincinnati. I'm Craig McKee. Vice President Kamala Harris visited Cincinnati on Friday. The focus of her visit was transportation and the president's Jobs America Plan and American Families Plan. The vice president held a roundtable discussion with local leaders such as Senator Sherrod Brown. Vice President Harris said that the White House initiatives are really investments in America's future.
How are we going to have direct impact on working people? How are we going to improve the condition of their lives? How are we going to make it doable?
Local Republicans are responding to the vice president's remarks. They say they support new infrastructure, but the White House plan is out of control spending that will also kill jobs with higher taxes. Tuesday is primary day in Ohio. Many communities do not have any candidates or issues on the ballot right now, but are several big contests, though, going on in Cincinnati. Voters will narrow the field down of 6 candidates running for mayor to just 2, who will face each other then in November. There is also issue 3 on the ballot, the Affordable Housing Charter Amendment. It would require the city to spend at least $50 million a year on affordable housing. We have coverage of all of those races for you on WCPO.com. The polls will open Tuesday at 6:30 a.m. and close at 7:30 that night. Remember to bring an ID with you as well. WCPO 9 News will have the results for you on air and online as soon as they come in. And at 11, we'll have reaction from the winners and losers. Kentucky is relaxing some of its COVID-19 restrictions. The mask mandate was changed this week. It is no longer in effect for anyone at an outdoor event where 1,000 people or less are present. But you still have to wear a mask at places like your own workplace or grocery stores and schools. And as always, with all the stories we cover here on WCPO 9, we'd love to hear your opinions. Pick up the phone and call 513-852-4998. That's the Feedback Friday hotline. I'll share your thoughts every Friday night at 6. And that's going to do it for This Week in Cincinnati for this weekend. Join us for all the breaking news, weather, and sports at 6 and 11 tonight on WCPO 9 News. Plus, we're always updating your latest headlines on WCPO.com. Have a good weekend.